Hello and welcome to this episode of the Excaliburr podcast, hosted by me, Kyle Brooks. Today we have an esteemed guest, a guest that we've been trying to get on for a couple of weeks right now, and she finally agreed to come on. Welcome, Ellen Brooks.
Thank you very much for having me. It is an honor. I look forward to chatting about all things Excaliburr. It's not going to work if you're going to laugh at everything I say. Be serious.
I'll do my best.
We're being serious.
It's very difficult. Everybody wants to talk about our story, how we met, but no one seems to talk about the story about how you managed to find yourself moving over to the United States, leaving a phenomenal career and being an exceptionally independent person to coming over here. And that's something that I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. We do get a lot of questions about our origin story. How did this South African and this English girl meet from this guy that now lives in Richmond? So that is a cool story, maybe for another time. But yes, a little bit of context. Kyle and I had been dating for about, I want to say like 8 months before I kind of made the decision. I know that while we were dating, from maybe month 3, you were very sure that, this was going to be very serious. This was going to be, I was going to be the one. I guess that's how I felt. Like, you made me feel like you were sure. You were like, no, you're going to come live with me sometime. We don't know when, but we're going to make it happen. And I remember we did like the little treasure hunt thing. I don't know if you even remember, you did a little hunt around the house, and like one of the pictures or one of the things was to say, this will be, was it the drawer? Was it this will be at the house? I can't quite remember actually now that I've brought it up, typical me. But I know there was an implication there that kind of stated like, you are going to live with me. And then I will say that we went on holiday in like August time in the summer. We were very lucky to get away because it was as COVID was creeping in. And I think during that time, it was a very interesting holiday. I think that being our first holiday as a couple, it triggered a lot of different things that came up, or a few control things on my side and trying to let you lead on your side. And ultimately us not necessarily knowing each other that well outside of our comfort zones. So in that sense, again, story for another time, was a very interesting holiday. But during that time, what I recognized was, through any of my emotional outbursts, through any of the problems or the friction that we were seeing, there was a willingness to figure out what was going on here. And it wasn't running at the first sign of difficulty, in that sense. And I know I can be a little bit hard work sometimes, and I know that the way my brain works can create non-situations, and it takes me a minute sometimes to get back to logic and be like, that wasn't really worth the big reaction that it got. But that's how I felt in the moment. And I've drawn this out ridiculously long. There was a moment where we had been kind of arguing, kind of trying to have a good time, but we were a little tense. We were on that boat trip. We went over to the little island. We were down in Cancun, Mexico. And it'd been such a mixed day. And then my hat blew off anyway. Like, we were going back to the ship and my hat blew off, and it went in a boat or in the water at the side of the dock. And even though I had been a pain in the butt for most of that day, without even thinking, you dropped whatever was in your hands and you were in that water and you were in that boat and you were getting my hat. And I was like, it doesn't even matter, I can get a new hat. But like, that to me just showed what the type of man you are. Like, really, like, in terms of when times are tough, he still treats me in this like respectful way. I'm still put first, even though I've been an absolute pain all day. You were still going to jump into action for me in my time of need. And that was a big light bulb kind of secure moment for me, where I was like, okay, that shows me the type of man you are.
Yeah.
Obviously, being made to feel so special and amazing by this guy who I felt was so amazing and so impressive, was one of the reasons too. It was like, hey, I'm gonna get my chance to be my queen. I finally found someone who has the potential to be the king in my life. And I had always just kind of thought I was gonna be the king and the queen for my life, right? So I feel like I've gone broad and I need to come back in now. So basically what I'm saying is the holiday, the way that you still treated me and reacted to situations when things weren't ideal, I'd say that was something. And then just the way we'd already managed to make the long distance thing work, right? Which I never thought would happen. I was one of those women who was like, I will never do long distance. I will never do this. I'm not going to do this. I couldn't even make convenient relationships from people who live 20 minutes around the corner work in the past, potentially.
Never mind a couple of thousand miles away.
Never mind that. Because I recognize that I do require a lot of energy. I like a lot of reassurance. I like a lot of attention. And it can be difficult for people to meet that need, especially when there's a 5-hour time difference and you have full-time jobs and a side job. And I was also doing my full-time teaching career. I was coaching on the side, playing netball in the evenings, singing when I got the opportunity to. So even through all of that, you still met every commitment you ever put out to me. We still spoke when we could. If things were going to be challenging, you were let me know up front about those things. I still got the occasional mystery gift, surprise gift. I was furious when you sent a bouquet to school because everyone was like, ooh, who's this? Who's got you this beautiful bouquet? And it's like, oh my God. Stop it. Which I absolutely love and adore now, but I was still kind of in that masculine, still trying to feel out the situation, I guess. Yeah, it was like, ugh, yucky. Whereas now I'm like, get me flowers. I want flowers.
But coming back to it, that holiday, the start of the holiday, we weren't meant to go to Cancun. We were actually meant to go to the Bahamas, baby. And this was during COVID time. So we were meant to go to the Bahamas. We get to the desk and they're like, oh no, she can't fly to the Bahamas because we have to go via America. And at that stage, Americans weren't allowing people from the UK to transition to America without a 2-week stay in somewhere else. So at the airport itself, we stopped and we're like, okay, now what? So we tried Jamaica. Jamaica wasn't going to be on the books because it was exactly the same thing. So we came to Cancun. And I remember that the guy that was at the actual desk says, listen, no, it doesn't matter what your phone says. This book says that people from South Africa can't go to Mexico without a visa. I'm like, okay, give me the book then. Literally read through the book. Speed reading is amazing. Read through the book and be like, listen, right in this particular passage here, it says that if I have a green card, I will be permitted to go to Cancun. It's like, okay, you're right. So we transitioned. This is why you need to be adaptable. And I was so thankful that she was adaptable. In this situation, I was like, man, shit's it's hitting the fan at the moment. But you were very, very flexible with what was happening and you were relaxed because I made you hopefully feel like you were taken care of and secure. So we figured out that we had the ability to go to Cancun, booked it, which meant that we had to stay over in the airport for that night.
Oh my God, I forgot about all this extra drama that we went through.
So that was the start of the actual holiday during COVID times.
Right.
And then we flew into Cancun and it was one of the most amazing holidays because of the actual drama. And I wouldn't say drama, it was a little bit of
growth, right? Yeah. It was the pinch points that are necessary during the early days in a relationship to be like, oh, hold on, that made me feel this way. Let me just take a moment to process that. Is that something I need to bring to you? And that actually leads really well into another quality or reason why I felt so comfortable making the move was, damn it, I was doing so well. Help me out. What was I just saying?
You were, why you felt so comfortable making
Just
the move?
before that, though.
So the what?
The handling stuff. The dealing with stuff.
The pinch points and the growth.
Pinch points and the growth.
Yes.
That's where I was going. Good old neurodivergent brain kicking in. Might have to come back to that one. Oh no.
Okay.
That's what I was gonna say, sorry. So we can put it back in. One of the qualities and values that like really helped me feel confident in going all in on the relationship, all in on the move, was the emotional kind of intelligence and maturity. Whereas like a lot of times in the past when you want to bring up, like maybe with a partner, you want to bring up problems or something has like triggered you, there's often that element of, you might express it, but there's rarely a conversation to help understand what went wrong or how to move forward on that. And that was happening with us very early on, because obviously, without trying to digress too much back to when we first met and first started dating, like obviously there I wasn't necessarily confident enough to jump into a relationship, even dating at first, because I was like, it's going to be a lot. But we were having those conversations and we were able, I felt like I could bring up maybe slightly more emotional things or things that I was a little insecure about that maybe ended up being nothing to you.
Yeah.
But when we had those conversations on like the deeper level, there was a safe space, so to speak, and there was never any judgment there. And I have had some issues with like rejection or just kind of not being accepted in that way. So I was a little bit like worried, like, hey, is this going to be a red flag to him? Is this going to be a deal breaker that I have this baggage or I have this thing that I do? But knowing that the only way we were going to be, serious is to have those conversations. And I was just really grateful for the way we were able to move through those kind of discussions, even whilst being so far apart. Yeah. And when there wasn't, like maybe when there was a misunderstanding through messaging, it was like straight on the FaceTime, straight on the call. Like, I just don't want to misconstrue the tone here. Or I don't really understand what you're trying to say. Can you explain it? Yeah. And that curiosity, that willingness from both sides to understand each other and be able to serve each other better. I think along with a lot of other things, he's really hot. Helped me feel confident and secure in making that decision. You were getting the house ready. I know that financially you were able to look after us. I knew that you were prepared to kind of take on my transition in that sense and, take care of me, and knowing that I've never allowed anyone to ever take care of me. There was going to be a whole process for sure. But it seems so funny because now when I reflect back on it, it was almost like a whiplash effect. Like, it's just like, we were dating, we knew, we decided, we're not going to be able to keep the long distance thing going because of COVID. Do you know what? Almost, what's the worst that I could lose from my point of view? Yeah. Worst case scenario was I hop back on a plane back to the UK and pick up right back where I started, so to speak. Whereas a lot of the risk really was on your side. And for somebody that was able to meet that commitment and me feel secure that you were going to be able to financially look after me, physically like protect us, provide the house, provide a new life, and the life that you were painting for us in the future was very attractive, was very much outside of my initial vision. Even though I did have this plan as an independent woman, my career was going well. I was going to get the house, the nice car, go on the holidays twice a year, maybe have my own side hustle. Maybe I would have ended up a business owner. Maybe I would have ended up with all these other amazing experiences that I've had. But ultimately, being willing to take that risk, because it was almost not a risk. If that makes sense, because you made it that way.
Security. That's the main thing that I think I believe that I communicated to you from the very beginning was, listen, I'm a man of my word. I have integrity. I'm going to do the right thing no matter what happens and how I feel in a particular moment. I'm going to honor what I've said to you and my own belief system. And based on that, I ensured that the picture that I was painting was going to be a reality. It wasn't going to be like today. A lot of people have this thing where they'll say something. Oh, I'm going to meet you at the gym tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. And 5 o'clock comes, I'm there, and they're not there, right? You have to be a man of your word, in my opinion. Your word is your bond. And that's something I believe in very, very strongly. And it's what we teach people in Excaliburr, is that integrity is where everything starts, and then it kind of branches out from there. Drive, you said the integrity and the bringing back to the hat story, we were talking about that, was something that, hey, just because I was a little bit perturbed at how that situation was handled, or the behavior in that circumstance, it doesn't mean that I'm going to treat you any differently. Your behavior is completely different to who you are as a person. And I believe that shows that you should be still executing for the people that you love, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And for sure, in the sense that what made you like a cut above the rest during that dating, as we were getting to know each other, was this idea of, yes, you pretty rich, you got muscles, whatever, which told me that you already take a certain level of care in your body, you're interested in health and fitness, potentially a little bit sporty. They're all ticks for me. Like, okay, I'm pretty competitive, I like to be active. This guy's going to be strong enough. He has the physical traits of what it is to be a man. So that was very attractive, because that was lacking for a lot of people, necessarily in my community. So there was the physical element, but then there was also this pure kind of ambition that was there, and clear, just interesting, you'd done things.
Yeah.
And that made me aspire to want to be good enough to be the person that you choose. You know what I mean? And for you to then choose me was like a really big honor, for me in that moment. It was put me very much on my pedestal in that sense. And I just think that all those things that you promised or showed me in the beginning have not changed. Whereas a lot of people, after a certain amount of time of dating, maybe certain things change, the energy drops, people get comfortable, people get secure with each other, maybe they'd let themselves go. Whereas you were always very clear with me in the beginning that to you it's really important that we both have our own kind of, not our own lives, so to speak, but we have our own goals, ambitions that we're working towards, and that we have similar interests and values. But you never wanted someone who was going to be completely dependent on you for happiness and I don't have my own thing going on for fulfillment. And equally, it was like, hey, I might not always be around. I'm going to be traveling. If opportunities come up, I'm going to take them. And I am not the kind of person, I don't want a kind of partner who's going to make me feel bad about doing those things or hold me back. And I was like, that sounds amazing. Like, I love that. Like, that's what I want. That's what I didn't think was necessarily possible. So yeah, definitely feel like I went this way, that way, round the roundabout, and back down. But I guess ultimately was that you were able to provide all the necessary foundation for us to build a relationship over here, for me to feel comfortable and confident enough to take that risk, to leave my job that I loved behind, and like the house and my life, family, friends, and none of it seemed that scary. Like, I was, realistic. I thought I was realistic about what it was going to encompass and what I was going to be letting go of. That, maybe I was slightly underestimated what that would be, but overall, at no point was I worried. Even like you say, so our first holiday to Cancun, things all went wrong initially, but we made it happen. We had a great time. Well, fast forward to me emigrating over here. Emigrating,
yeah.
To emigrating over here. And again, I had to isolate. I had to be in Cancun for 2 weeks before I could come over here.
Yeah.
And provisionally, I was going to be there on my own for 2 weeks because you couldn't necessarily take the time off work. You were getting things ready here. But if I remember rightly, I was only alone for like 2 days over there, and you were in contact with me the whole time. You had secured everything. And then you came and spent Christmas with me, made sure like that was a good time and that I had you around me and I wasn't just completely isolated in Cancun with like barely any spares with my suitcases that would come into America with me. So I had to pack like bikinis and my life in these suitcases. And yeah, and then you went back and then you came back for New Year. And then I think you like left maybe the day before me.
Yeah.
So I actually spent very little time on my own during that process. And again, like that just shows the type of man that you are. Like you made that happen. I don't necessarily know how, but you made that happen. Maybe work didn't know you were there, but and then, you know, obviously I landed on US soil, had a little panicky interview coming through the door, had to have a little extra conversation about why I was here and who I was seeing and how long I was staying.
I remember that.
2 weeks. 2 weeks I'm staying. And then, yeah, like everything was taken care of. And I'm not saying everything was roses and rainbows.
For sure.
As no great thing ever comes from roses and rainbows, right? We have to have a little bit of work in there. But yeah, just always consistent on those values and keeping to the word. And I just always felt safe the whole time, the whole process. Like whatever was going to happen, we would work it out. Okay. In my mind, it was like, okay.
Teamwork, yeah.
As long as I know that we're going to sort it out. But it's not like whatever.
Helping it, yeah. I believe that I think one of the things that differentiated you from me was the fact that we were into the same stuff. So you were still training, you were working out as well, and you were sporty and competitive. Me being competitive as well, being on a team, on the same team together, we kick ass, you know, a lot of the time. So that to me was great. So that's one of the reasons that differentiated you. And when I came back after meeting you for the first time, I had to come and sort some things out over here and make sure that I was able to put you first and in that circumstance. But it doesn't mean that the priorities of my purpose, like you said, my purpose would always come first, but you're along with me, guiding me towards it or helping me, supporting me along that side. You're like, you put it very, very well the other day when we were speaking about it. You spoke about the fact that it's like kind of the navigation system and support team as well as like a pit crew if you're trying to win a Grand Prix. The purpose is to win the Grand Prix. I've got an amazing car. I've done all the work prior to that. But if you don't have a great pit crew, you're not going to be able to win that Grand Prix. Yeah,
100%. And like I say, I think that what you don't realize as well a lot of the time is you do have a general like presence and a general mindset that like kind of seeks out the potential in everybody. And when I wanted to step into that. Some people, it scares them, it intimidates them, and it's like, oh wait, I could do this, this, and that. Well, I never thought that was possible.
Yeah.
Let's prove me wrong. But one of the things I would add, just to back it up in the sense of like, Kyle was not looking for a girlfriend or a wife. I wasn't necessarily looking for a boyfriend or a husband in that sense, but you know, you were out doing your thing, being pleasant, smiling, looking good, and it attracted me. You know, it made me want to come forward. I went up and shook his hand. I went up to him on the night out. That's part of the other story. But yeah, and you were able to recognize the good things and the how I was going to enhance and amplify what you wanted to make happen, as opposed to be a drain on those resources or a drain on that energy, or someone who is just going to settle. You are very much like a 1% improvement person. Like it was a little bit much. It is a little bit like intense sometimes, I think, when people first meet you, because it's just like, wow, this guy just does not stop. He's just always reaching for the next thing. And it can be a little intense for some people. And there can be an element of being like, just calm down, bro. Like, yeah, okay, we all want to be better, but let's just calm down a little bit. Whereas that energy that you have, I think, does trickle out to people. And for some people, it makes them nervous. And for some people, I think it empowers them to do better and do more.
Which is something that we're going to speak about on one of our next podcasts. The biggest argument that we had in the beginning was capability versus will. And I'm pretty sure we argue about this for at least like 3 weeks. I don't know.
Yes. Until you finally realized that I was right. But it was a shame that I was right, because your view of the world, of people and what they're capable of, and everyone can do everything if they all try. And I'm like, no, they won't. They won't. They can't. You could put the same thing out in front of the same people. But I loved having those conversations with you as well. One of the things that I had a love-hate relationship with in our relationship at the beginning was how challenged I would feel sometimes when we'd have conversations, heated debates, discussions, intellectual discussions, which I just wasn't necessarily used to having. Definitely wasn't used to having people have alternative perspectives as different as you had, maybe necessarily, because again, I was just from my small town. I'd done a little traveling, I had explored the world. But ultimately, my circle had still been, what's the word I'm trying to think of here? The conversations have still been like shallow conversations, so to speak. They're all about just things that you talk about. So to get into that, and again, not necessarily agree, but be able to still move forward. For me, I was like, oh, I thought that meant that we argue and we fight and we fall out now, and now we don't talk, and now we don't do whatever. And I was like, we can have a discussion and still continue our day. So that was good. I had to work on calming down the rage a little bit, because I was like, but that was also good. And they say, don't they, that partners are mirrors of each other. And any of the things that I needed to work on that you were mirroring made me want to be better. And then anything that
I needed to work on, you were triggering.
You were showing that I could be more, I was going to say.
For sure. But I think the beautiful thing about a relationship is that when we do trigger each other, it's automatically a spark for growth. You know, that's the thing. I am so growth driven because of the fact that I'm curious. I want to know about everything. I want to understand what makes certain people that way, what is the reason that is. And then once I can get to actually involve myself in that and encapsulate myself in that, then I can kind of navigate out of it and hopefully help more people, which is the whole job of Excaliburr, is to help more people moving forward in life.
And I can't wait to see you guys absolutely blow up. So if you're seeing this podcast right now, depending on when you see it, you know, it's still early days. We're still in the growing phase. I get to see all the hard work behind the cameras. And all that I would say is, if you are still a little bit unsure about Excaliburr, is take the time to have a conversation with Kyle, because it is impossible to not believe in yourself and your capabilities once you have that conversation with him. Annoyingly so.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for coming to and being amazing today. And thank you guys for listening.
Filling the whole time. Forgetting what I'm saying, going back. Yeah.
Well, you guys know where to find us. We're at Excaliburr Coaching on Instagram, on Facebook, as well as YouTube. Hit that subscribe button if you want to carry on seeing some more content. Have a fantastic day, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.